Welcome to This Old Camera. I'm your host Azriel Knight, and in this episode we take a look at the Minolta Maxxum 7000.
Nothing escapes the eye of Maxxum. The world's first SLR with built-in autofocus, Minolta Maxxum focuses by itself. Sharp, fast. Only the human eye focuses faster. With Minolta Maxxum, you even get unexpected shots that would have gotten away. The incredible Maxxum system.
The Maxxum 7000, also known as the Dynex 7000 outside North America and the 7000 AF in Europe, was announced in January 1985 and released in February. During this time, the only autofocusing for an SLR was in the lens. These tended to be bulky and ineffective, while the Maxxum's autofocusing rivals even some of today's DSLRs.
Only the human eye focuses faster.
It has a single focus point and used TTL phase detection technology with an 8-bit digital onboard computer. I know it's rather silly to call it a computer by today's standards, but at the time, this was cutting edge and a game changer. Popular science writer Everett H. Ordner called it a significant achievement in camera design, explaining to readers that by putting its auto-focusing microprocessor in the camera itself, you end up with lenses no bigger than those of standard SLRs. So it comes as no surprise that the Minolta Maxxum 7000 was the 1985 European Camera of the Year. The Minolta Maxxum 7000 wasn't without a little controversy though. In the initial release of the Maxxum series, Minolta interlocked the two X's on the camera's logo. Oil giant Exxon was not happy about this and considered it a violation of their trademark and filed a lawsuit. They called the similarities virtually identical. Minolta was allowed to distribute the remaining cameras with the interlocking X's while phasing in the new cameras over several months to avoid a disruption in their production schedule. This was all settled out of court just a month after its initial release. January 1986's issue of Popular Mechanics featured a shootout between the Minolta Maxxum 7000 and Canon's T80 with an autofocus lens. Popular Mechanics did a fairly thorough side-by-side comparison, noting that the Minolta was about 25% faster than the Canon. Both used similar tech, the difference being that Minolta's was in the body and Canon's was in the lens. What gave Minolta the edge was that the 7000 wouldn't allow you to release the shutter unless something was in clear focus. Canon's T80 fired no matter what. It would be misleading to say that the Maxxum doesn't focus accurately, says Stephen A. Booth. It either focuses or it doesn't let you take the picture at all. The Canon T80 AF will let you make a fool of yourself if you don't learn patience. You can release the shutter while the lens is racking back and forth to find focus. We blew a lot of frames before learning just how much pressure the shutter release will bear. In June 1986, the New York Times wrote, "The Minolta Camera Company stands at the foremost producer of serious 35mm autofocus cameras today. No competitor has come close to tying computer technology and high-tech concepts into cameras. The Maxxum 9000 and 7000 are in a class by themselves." Minolta initially released 12 dedicated lenses with the Maxxum series ranging from 24 to 300mm. Several battery holders were also available, giving the photographer the option of using AA's, AAA's, or lithium ions. Other accessories included a remote trigger, several data backs, and a line of flashes. Perhaps one of the more interesting accessories I've ever heard of is a digital back called the SB70 or SB70S in North America. First announced at Photokina in 1986, this massive back piece was marketed as a still video back. It recorded 640 by 480 images on a CCD sensor onto a video floppy disk. Not only did you have to remove the mirror and the back, but it also had a crop factor of 4, turning your 50mm lens into a 200mm lens. It also doubled the weight of the camera. In 1988, the 7000 was replaced by the 7000i. Popular Photography wrote in their January issue that since the 7000 arrived, Nikon, Canon, Olympus, Pentax, and others have arrived with their sometimes more advanced AF SLRs. Sales of the 7000s dropped, hence Minolta had to update the camera. That's not quite the end of the Minolta Maxxum 7000 story though. In 1992, just when Minolta thought that their days of dodging litigation was over, Honeywell claimed that they infringed on a patent that they filed in the early 1970s for the autofocus system, and thus began a 4-month legal battle in Newark that ended in Minolta paying Honeywell a $96 million settlement. Although the jury conceded that the infringement was unintentional, Honeywell had said that it was less a victory than a vindication of American technological prowess, that the United States had squandered the benefits of that prowess by failing to demand more international protection for patents and other intellectual property. Minolta officials shot back, saying Honeywell was making an effort to turn a complex business dispute into an international trade issue. Regardless of the controversy, the Minolta Maxxum 7000 marks a historical turning point for photographers.
思いのままにオートフォーカス感じるままにズームシャッターチャンスは
It's the world's first SLR with built-in autofocus. Fast, accurate.
From here, we'll go over some operation basics. Then I'll show you the results of my field test, after which I'll tell you where you can get one, how much it'll set you back, and if it's worth it. Depending on your grip, it'll take AA's or AAA's. The AA's go into a certain order and the AAA pack pivots out to fit that fourth battery. You'll need a coin to get the grip off and on again. Power the camera with the main switch on the top. There's on or on with sound. On with sound will notify you when you're in a low light situation and when focused. To load or roll a film, pop open the back by pressing this safety lock button and pressing down on the release. Then place the canister firmly on the left, drag the film to the orange marker on the right and close. You should hear 4 quick advances and the number 1 displayed on the data panel on the top. If your film is DX coded, your ISO will automatically be chosen. If not, you can adjust your ISO by pressing and holding the film speed key like a shift button and using the arrows beside the shutter release. Attaching a lens is standard, just line up the red dots and rotate clockwise. To remove the lens, press and hold the lens release and rotate counterclockwise. You can choose one of 4 modes: program, which is automatic, aperture priority, shutter priority, or full metered manual. Cycle through the modes by holding the exposure mode key and using the top arrows. Program mode is adjustable and can be reset using the Program Reset button. In aperture and shutter priority, the arrows on the top or side will adjust their respective setting. In manual, the top will adjust the shutter and the side will adjust the aperture. To use exposure compensation, hold the exposure adjustment key while using the arrows at the top. You can adjust by up to plus or minus 4 f-stops. The Maxxum 7000 has 2 drive modes plus a self-timer. To cycle through these, hold the drive mode key while using the arrows. S stands for single frame mode. Your camera will take 1 photo at a time. C stands for continuous mode. You'll be able to take photos as long as you hold the shutter release. ST stands for self-timer and will begin a 10-second countdown before firing. To take a photo, place the small rectangle in the center of the viewfinder over the subject and half press the shutter release to ensure focus. When you see a green dot to the left of your exposure settings, press the shutter release the rest of the way. If you're in a situation where you need to focus manually, like shooting through a reflected surface, use the focus mode switch located under the lens release. Red arrows will appear in the viewfinder, letting you know which way you need to adjust, and the green dot will appear once the subject is in focus. Once you've taken all the photos, the camera will let you know. Rewind the film by pressing this R button on the back, holding it and pulling this switch to the left.
with an SLR autofocus system so fast, so accurate, and so easy to use that it becomes an extension of your hand and eye.
Only from the mind of Minolta.
And here are the results of my field test. To test out the Minolta Maxxum 7000, I shot 2 rolls with 2 separate cameras. The one camera was a Maxxum 7000 with a 50mm 1.7 that commonly came with the body when sold. I shot in aperture priority on Kodak Ektar 100 and developed at home. The other camera was a European version, a 7000 AF with a Tamron 28 to 200mm lens. I shot in full program mode with Kodak Triax. I shot in program because I wanted to see how the camera handled on its own. What you're seeing is a basic scan. The only adjustments made were levels and curves with a minor color correction pre-scan.
"思いのままにオートフォーカス」「感じるままにズーム」「思いのままにオートフォーカス」「感じるままにズーム」「システム充実ミノルタアルファ7000」
Let's talk about some pros and cons. Pros. When Sony entered the DSLR market, they acquired Minolta's auto-focusing lens mount. So any Sony A mount lens will work, and vice versa. The interchangeable grips that take regular batteries means that when yours fail, it's a quick trip to 7-Eleven for new ones. I know I've said this before, but it really does make a huge difference in cost and convenience. It has a nice, simple viewfinder display that tells you your settings and whether or not you can fire the shutter. Overall, this is a great camera. It's got a really interesting look about it, almost like a Sony Walkman. Actually, it kind of reminds me of Soundwave from Transformers. It tickles me in a way only 80s nostalgia can. Cons. Just because it looks good doesn't mean it's a great idea all around. The function buttons on the left are recessed, making them just a little harder to press, and its angular body tosses the idea of ergonomics right out the window. The display setting in the viewfinder isn't visible unless you are looking directly straight inside, with perfect eye placement. If your eye is a little high or low, the display seems to just disappear. Buyer's guide. If you're looking to buy one of these for yourself, they are readily available on eBay and relatively inexpensive, trending at about $45 US as of 2018. This is a good deal. I actually expected it to go for more. When it comes to rare versions of this camera, of course, keep an eye out for that interlocking XX model. Another one would be the transparent demo model. Hard to tell how many of these are made, as serial numbers would not have been applied. Thanks for watching another episode of This Old Camera. What should I review next? Let me know in the comments below. You could also follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and until next time, stay classic.